dismay me when I think about them. Now, the libertarian editors of the Gazette are strong advocates of individual rights to own guns. And they have many editorials about it. I invite the editors of the Gazette to read their own newspaper. And I started clipping, in anticipation of this, in the last week or so. Every day in the paper, there are reports of guns being used or killings. Gunfire in the Springs Walmart store. Can you imagine that? Another Subway in Springs robbed. A man came in brandishing a gun. Another sheriff's office, a 71-year-old pulls a rifle on a sheriff's deputy. Here's a man arrested, the Public Service Credit Union. He armed the credit, tried to do it. How did he do it? With a gun. 2 robbed outside their apartment. Been robbed at gunpoint while walking to their apartment. I won't read you the rest. You get the, read it yourself. Every day in the Gazette, there are these things. I urge the editors to read their own paper. Now, in our country, we have a tradition of private gun ownership, largely inherited from the experience of the pioneers, living in the wilderness and confronting the hostility of the residents there, that is the Native Americans. And their armed resistance, packing pistols, is celebrated in song and story and in films. I mean, we regard the Minutemen of revolutionary times as national heroes. They kept the gun right over their fireplace. Maybe you remember Paul Revere's Ride. And I, on the opposite shore, will be ready to ride and spread the alarm to every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm. And then these words, you know the rest in the books you have read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and barnyard wall. I once recited that in elementary school too. Gary Cooper as Wild Bill Hickok, and Gene Parker as Calamity Jane. Wild Bill Hickok was a hero to me as a boy, and I revered the fast draw, straight shooting sheriffs who brought law and order to western towns. And later generations looked, I'm sure, in the same way at John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Clint Eastwood, and others. Now, everybody knows that the National Rifle Association is the leading defender of private gun ownership, and there are a number of other organizations as well as the Pikes Peak Firearms Coalition. The last few days I've been, and I have for many years because I teach about this, I taught about this, read the NRA publications with great care. And the last few days I probed their website. Now, for a while, the NRA, which was formed after the Civil War, emphasized guns, hunting, and sport. And more recently, as you heard, the great emphasis has been on self-defense in the home and in the streets. And they've advocated the right to carry concealed guns in all public places and public parks, even in schools, on college campuses. Some of the more extreme statements promote gun ownership as a way for citizens to protect themselves against government. And that's reminiscent of the old days in our country when, as Bill said, people feared a national army and they looked upon the militia, ordinary armed citizens, like the Minutemen, as protection, not only against those odious British redcoats, but against their own government as well. And that's been carried over into attitudes today. Wayne LaPierre, the executive leader of the NRA, once referred now to federal government officers as jackbooted thugs who need to be resisted. Now, if you take that argument today, that would seem to validate private ownership of machine guns, tanks, helicopters, and other weapons capable of resisting the government. But the NRA has opposed regulation of weapons not needed for ordinary self-defense, sport, or hunting, like fast-firing semi-automatic or automatic handguns and rifles, and bullets capable of piercing body armor. Now, one big problem in the traffic, in this business, is the traffic in guns by unlicensed and unlawful dealers. He's not one of them. Almost 60% of the nation's crime guns have been estimated to come from only 1% of dealers. That's a sobering figure. And weak gun laws make it easy for guns to pass into unlicensed and criminal hands. And guns are bought in states with lax gun laws, and they're carried across state lines to cities, for example, where gun crimes are prevalent. Now, the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence is probably the principal gun control organization, although there are a number of others as well. Now, you know Sarah Brady was the wife of Jim Brady, who was permanently disabled in the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. In 1994, President Bill Clinton signed into law the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, and that act provided for background checks and waiting periods before people could buy guns from licensed gun dealers. From 94 to 2008, in that period, its study has shown that 1.8 million firearm purchases were blocked by Brady checks under that law. Assault weapons were made illegal, but the Bush administration allowed them to expire in 2004, that is the ban on assault weapons. The NRA has, in my view, inexplicably opposed the Brady Law and any attempts to regulate gun dealers. Now, in all of these matters, and Mr. Pardes can check me on this, it seemed to me that the NRA argument is that regulation of any weapons or ammunition will only be the first step toward banning all weapons in private hands. LaPierre has stated that. They want to regulate weapons now, but they want to take them